Whether you're the Gibson guy that needs a reliable whammy system, or a double locking bridge guy that fell in love with a Les Paul, is the FRX from Floyd Rose the solution? My name's Tristan Rivers, and I'm here to help answer that question. So what exactly is the Floyd Rose FRX? It is a surface mounting vibrato system that is designed to install onto a guitar with a tunematic style bridge and not require anything too terribly invasive like routing into the body of it. Now, something like that would be very useful for a couple reasons, of course. It's something that would be very reversible. You're not devaluing some vintage instrument or anything like that. As well, it would be very useful being that whole surface mount style, because you could easily fit this onto something that doesn't have nearly the same thickness as a Les Paul. Like you could put it onto an SG or something like that. Now, if something like that sounds too good to be true, well, the truth is, to some extent, it is. The truth is, when you're installing the locking mechanism at the top of the guitar, it does require a couple of screws going into the headstock to secure this down properly. Now, the good news, though, is I tried the FRX bridge without this installed for a while, and to be honest, it was very stable. If you're curious about how that turned out, I did record a demo for that, so I'll leave a link in the description. So I guess the next big question would be, how was the installation? Well, I was able to do it myself in around 30 minutes. The instructions were adequate. It came together, set up fairly well. You might have a slightly different experience with that, but it just seemed when I put everything on, everything seemed to line up just about right for just the intonation and things like that. It was easier to get this thing up and running and set up than a standard original Floyd Rose. Just some of the features built into it will just naturally make it easier for you, and I'll get to that in a moment. As for the installation of the nut, technically I did not do this. I just couldn't get myself to drill into the headstock of this thing. It's an old beat up Les Paul. It has a headstock repair, but still, I wanted to get a tech to do it. So I got my friend Bruce Jacobs at Quest Music in Winnipeg to do it. The guy's probably the best tech in the city, so if you're around here, definitely go visit him. He's just a huge help to me. I can't say enough good stuff about Jake. Another note about the installation: when the tech installed the locking mechanism, he did use a shim to make everything kind of work out okay. I saw a video on YouTube talking about how the lock, there were some issues with it. I know that the video that I saw, the person was using an Epiphone SG of some kind, and I don't know if it has to do with like the neck angle or the headstock angle or whatever it was. Probably the nut, the way it was cut to some extent too. So I think the situation was his guitar was going considerably sharp when you would put the pads down into the lock, just because it needed to be shimmed up so you weren't pulling everything sharp as you locked everything down. For myself, just again, the way it fit, it just took one very small shim, but that was another thing that was necessary to make this work out. So how well does the FRX perform? Well, it's pretty good. So going down, you know, I can make the strings go fairly slack. They don't completely hang off like you'd expect from most double locking bridges like an original Floyd Rose or an Ibanez Edge or anything like that. But it certainly gets you a convincing dive bomb there. You just, your top strings kind of keep a decent amount of tension. As for going backwards, that's not bad at all either. Obviously an original Floyd Rose or an Edge can go quite a ways back, but I can get a third out of that, so that's really very, very usable. All right, let's see if we can get this thing to flutter. Well, it's a little tight, but I mean it's a Floyd Rose on a Les Paul. I mean, what can you ask for? Now, that one's pretty good. Now there are some features that are exclusive to the Floyd Rose FRX that is extremely useful as far as I'm concerned. Pretty much all the adjustments you make to this thing is right at your fingertips. The one thing that is a little weird is it's all with hex screws and hex wrenches, so Allen keys. And that includes the tension on the bar. So it does pop in and out, but to get the tension the way I like it, I kind of need to use the Allen key to actually remove the bar, so that's a little annoying, but I can set it exactly the way I want it. A few other things that are adjusted, the spring tension. It involves just your standard hex wrench like you would use on the nut, and it just goes right in the back here, so I can adjust what kind of tension I have going on here very easily with the exact same tool I use at the nut. So what's interesting, that combined with this other feature, there's this thumb screw that you use to block out the FRX. So I've got it set up right now, so I can't pull back because there's a screw here, and it'll go down, but then it stops, right? This thumb screw, with that in place, I can easily tune this down a half step or whatever, right? And then once that's done, all I need to do is adjust the screw at the back, and then I've got this guitar tuned down and adjusted and floating. And I have actually done that in a guitar lesson before. I had a student learning something down a half step in a drop D, so I just kind of did it. And so obviously going back to standard tuning takes a little bit more guesswork because you're adding tension to the strings, so adjusting the spring tension is a little bit trickier, but it's incredible how easy it is to change the tuning on the FRX. One more interesting feature of the FRX is they have a way of creating this stable 0 point on the trem by installing what they call the trem stable ball screw. Now what it is it's this plastic feeling screw that you put in with a hex wrench, again like an Allen key, and it kind of fits inside this divot on the bridge, so you have this point where it kind of locks into place. Now what it does, you can't flutter in any way, you can't do any kind of that really loose feeling bar stuff, but what it does is it makes it so you can do double stops and bends with them, and it doesn't really cause any issues with the other string. So I could play the low E string and push on the G string, it doesn't really go out of tune. So I mean, it works both ways. I can pull it up and push it down, and it just adds that little extra stability to it. For the players that don't like it how vibratos go out of tune on certain strings when you bend. Alright, so if you have any questions about the Floyd Rose FRX, or something you would like to add about the Floyd Rose FRX, I'd love to hear it in the comments down below. If you like this video and want me to keep making more videos like this, definitely hit the like button so I know that you're watching, and so you don't miss the next one. I would love it if you hit subscribe. Anyways, my name's Tristan Rivers, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.